Hey guys, Mr. Talbot here for you. This is going to be a two-part video that kind of help you get through the Age of Exploration and Enlightenment PFA. We're going to focus on exploration in this one, and then below you're going to see a link for our Enlightenment workshop. So kind of first bit, as we think about the Age of Exploration taking place about 1450 to 1750, thereabout. Well, this is not the first time people have been exploring, people have been interacting. Across Africa, Europe, and Asia, these groups have been in contact for thousands of years at this point. So what's going to be new is going to be kind of who the major explorers and power players are during this. Before kind of China, India, and the Middle East are kind of going to be the power players. The big thing that changed here is Europe is going to become more powerful and do more of the exploration here and going to be the bigger beneficiary here for sure. The other element that makes the age of exploration new is that we have the quote unquote new world, which would be North and South America. They're going to be getting integrated into this global network. And the exciting thing there is that means for the first time, the whole world is going to be interacting and able to be trading, communicating, sharing culture, all those things, which is going to be a very positive development. But we're going to see there's some negatives, some extreme negatives that go along with it. So I want to start kind of one of the first places the Europeans are going to be exploring, and that's going to be Africa. Now, Europe had been in contact with Africa, obviously, for a long, long time. Remember, humans originated in Africa millions of years ago. But when Europeans start exploring, they don't really ever go into the interior of Africa. They stay very much so on these kind of outskirt islands, as well as the coastline for these different trading posts. There's a variety of reasons for that. The first is just the interior of Africa is very, very difficult. It's a lot of jungle or deserts. It is very challenging to get across. In addition to that, there's already people there, and they're not going to just let you kind of walk through without there potentially being conflict. So these strong kingdoms limit Europeans going in. It also limits they've been in contact with these people from India and the rest of Asia. Similar thing on the East Coast here. They're not really venturing too far inland. There's that lack of knowledge. There's not really the shared communication. There's not maps or anything like that to go off of. So that kind of feeds us. And the other big thing is, the main motivator for most of these explorers is going to be to become wealthier. They want to trade and stuff. And the resources they needed to trade for and they wanted to trade for were already being brought to the coast by the African people themselves. And those resources we're going to see are going to be people that are going to be used for slaves, gold, and ivory. So Europeans as well as people from India and China have been able to kind of tap into these African resources for a long time. Should note at this point, slavery is going to be a long part of African history. When the Africans were selling people as slaves, they didn't really have this common type, well, you're African and I'm African, so that's just not a common thing there. Just as it wasn't in like the Roman Empire, Romans weren't looking and saying, hey, you're a Gaul from France. Well, you're European, I'm European, so we should. No, that wasn't happening. Same thing in Africa here. The other resource is going to be gold and ivory. So as you kind of saw on that map there, since Europeans don't really ever go inland, they're certainly not going to go across Africa because it's huge. They're trying to sail around Africa. Yes, they're interested in getting the resources from Africa, but what they're more interested in is getting the resources from Asia, whether that's India. Portugal is on the western edge of Europe. And so it's kind of if you're going to sail around Africa, it's kind of the closest route from there. So Portugal's going to kind of have the head start here. They're going to invest in some new technology and stuff. And one of the guys exploring them is named Vasco da Gama. His significance is that he's going to be the first person to go all the way from Europe to India on an ocean route. So before, if you wanted to get from Europe to India, you'd have to go over land. That went going through Muslim-controlled lands and having to pay fees and taxes there. And it was just harder to get a large amount of goods, and it was harder and it would take longer than going by boat, where you could get more goods faster. And so the other element from the Portuguese perspective, again, they're on the western edge of Europe. So they would have to go all the way across all of Europe and then all the way across the Middle East to get to India. This way was just a lot faster for them. The big thing from a European perspective is it's going to allow them to cut the Muslim merchants who controlled that land. They're going to be able to cut them out of the picture, which following their crusades and stuff, it's a lot of bad blood between the Muslim world and the European world. So this kind of puts Portugal in a really strong position, going to be really powerful. And these other European leaders, particularly Portugal's neighbor Spain, they get kind of nervous about this. They're like, well, we need to find our own way to get to India. And so in comes this other significant figure from history, and that's Christopher Columbus. Your explorers are exploring for, one of three reasons: to spread their religion, and, so for God, for gold, so making money, or for glory to kind of, help their king out. Um, so Christopher Columbus is going to be very much more in line with the trying to, glory for, the person he's working for, which is the Queen and King of Spain. But big time, he wants to make money. He's going to set out sail across the Atlantic, thinking he's going to get to China or India much faster that way because he didn't understand math and how big the world was. So he gets to these Caribbean islands and he thinks he's made it to Asia and he thinks he's made it to India, hence why the people he's going to meet are going to be called Indians. This is a hugely significant moment in world history. Again, we're connecting all of the world for the first time. We're going to see a huge exchange of people and goods and diseases called the Columbian Exchange. We'll talk about more in a second. And at least of this big race for empire. So we've seen Portugal establish their empire. Now we're going to see Spain getting in. Pretty soon it's going to be France and Britain, and the Dutch, and the Swedes even are all going to be trying to get on a little bit of the quote-unquote New World, which is new to the Europeans, not so much the Native Americans. So when we think about the Columbian Exchange, so definitely a good definition to have in your notes, probably something's going to come up on the PFA is people, good, food, and diseases being transferred from Afro-Eurasia, so Africa, Europe, and Asia, to North and South America and the Caribbean. So crops we're going to see, go into more detail shortly, hugely important to boosting world population in the long run. Going to be able to revolutionize Native American lifestyle with beasts of burden, things like the horses, the mule. That's going to help certainly with agriculture, but it's also going to help with just building new stuff. An unfortunate part of that revolution in agriculture is that it required more labor, and Europeans are going to turn to Africa for that labor through the Middle Passage, where millions and millions of Africans are going to be forced out of Africa to the Middle Passage on this horrible, horrible voyage. And so as we look kind of focusing real quick on how the Europeans interacted with the native populations in both Africa and in the Americas, the Europeans, again, this is about making money and their hope to exploit resources. The resources are people, and we see, slaves in pretty much both systems, gold and silver in the Americas, and just gold and ivory in Africa. Sometimes you have some native people are going to be involved, like, we saw Africans involved in acquiring people to sell to the Europeans in order to get guns or whatever else the case might be. Some Native American tribes are going to cooperate with the Europeans so that they can kind of get resources to fight against other natives. Some are going to resist. In Africa, the population really gets disrupted by millions of Africans being forced out, particularly mostly men, which is going to actually lead to more power for African women staying in Africa, but a huge disruption to the population there. And in the Americas, we're going to see about 90% of your Native Americans are going to die. The reason for this is, while Africans have been in contact with Europeans for thousands of years, Native Americans had not. And Native Americans tended to live a much cleaner lifestyle than your Europeans did at the time. This made them healthier at the time, but it also meant their immune system was a lot weaker. And so 90% or so of the Native Americans are going to die. That's about 60 million people, we think. So devastates Native American power and culture. For the Native Americans that are going to survive, we're going to see that the use of the horse increases. Don't need to take detailed notes off here, but just want to point out, because of the crops of the Columbian Exchange, world population is going to eventually be able to go up in a significant way. About 3/4 of the food we grow across the world today is native to the Americas. So kind of as we're summing up here, Columbian Exchange, we have interaction of the world's people for the first time. We've got Western Europe is going to become the most powerful part of the world for the next several hundred years. And kind of you can think of the old power structure, Asians in the Middle East is more powerful than Europe. The New World is, and the resources they acquire from there is going to allow Europeans to pass by. So the New World helps kind of throw off the power balance of the Old World. Native American people and culture is going to be harmed in ways that couldn't be repaired. And of course, we see the movement of millions and millions of African people. On the positive end, and on a high note, this does eventually allow for global population to increase because of the new food production. In our next video, we're going to have the Enlightenment, but hopefully that helps you with objectives 1 and 2 of this PFA.